Wait, you're saying my daughter was never actually admitted? My mom whispered into the phone, her face completely drained of color. Nobody at the Thanksgiving table moved. Not me. Not my sister. Not even my stepdad. 6 months earlier, that same woman had ripped my college acceptance letter in half over the kitchen trash can because my younger sister needed the opportunity more. I had the grades, the scholarship, the housing grant, none of it mattered. My mom told me to give it up so Morel could go instead. And somehow, she did. The admissions office said all the paperwork looked legitimate. My student portal had been accessed from inside our house. My enrollment was declined before I even knew what happened. But now the woman on the phone was asking my mother why my sister was attending classes under records that belonged to me. Then Mom looked directly at Morel and said, "What exactly did you tell them?" Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Morel's fork clattered against her plate. "I didn't tell them anything," she said quickly, but her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. The dining room suddenly felt too small, too warm. My aunt stopped chewing. My cousin slowly lowered his drink. Across the table, my stepdad Ronan stared at the mashed potatoes like he wanted to disappear into them. Mom pressed the phone tighter against her ear. "There has to be some mistake," she said, forcing out a laugh that sounded painful. "My daughter has been attending classes there since August." The woman on the other end kept talking. Mom's face got even paler. I'd never seen her look scared before. Not when bills piled up. Not when she fought with Ronan. Not even the day I confronted her after my acceptance disappeared from the university portal. But right now, standing beside the table in her Thanksgiving sweater with $30 earrings she claimed she couldn't afford, she looked cornered. And for the first time in 6 months, I felt something shift. Because 6 months ago, nobody listened to me. Not when I tried explaining that I never declined my admission. Not when I said someone had changed the password to my student account. Not when I told them my scholarship paperwork vanished overnight. Mom called me dramatic. Morel cried and locked herself in her room. Ronan stayed silent. Then the family started repeating Mom's version of the story like it was fact. Kelda gave up the opportunity. Kelda didn't want to leave home. Kelda wasn't ready. Meanwhile, I was working double shifts at a grocery store 10 minutes away from the campus I was supposed to attend. Mom suddenly turned toward me, gripping the edge of the counter so tightly her knuckles went white. "What did you do?" she asked. The entire room looked at me. I almost laughed. Because after months of being blamed, ignored, and treated like I was jealous of my own sister, somehow I was still the first suspect. Then the voice on the phone got loud enough for all of us to hear. "Ma'am," the admissions officer said sharply, "we need to discuss the fraudulent enrollment connected to your household immediately." 3 weeks after my acceptance letter was destroyed, I was sitting in my car outside the public library with my laptop balanced on the steering wheel, refreshing my student portal for the 5th time. Wrong password. Again. I rubbed my eyes and tried another variation. Nothing worked. At first, I honestly thought it was some technical glitch. Colleges sent out dozens of automated emails every day, and I figured maybe the system updated after scholarship decisions. But when I clicked Forgot Password, the recovery email wasn't mine anymore. It had been changed. I remember staring at the screen so long my laptop dimmed. Someone had gone into my account. I called the university admissions office the next morning during my break at work. I was standing in the grocery store stockroom surrounded by boxes of canned soup while a woman named Denise calmly pulled up my file. "Yes, Kelda, I see your enrollment confirmation here," she said. My stomach dropped. "My what?" "Your housing selection was finalized 2 weeks ago." "Congratulations, by the way." I nearly dropped the phone. "I never confirmed anything," I said. "I never even logged in." There was a pause on her end. Keyboard clicking. "Well, according to the system, the forms were completed electronically from your registered home network." Home network. My chest tightened immediately. That night, I confronted Mom in the kitchen while Morel sat at the counter pretending to scroll through her phone. "Did you touch my account?" I asked. Mom didn't even look up from washing dishes. Why would I do that? My password changed. Then maybe you forgot it. I didn't. She shut the water off hard. Kelda, you need to stop obsessing over this and move on. Move on. Like losing my future was some embarrassing breakup. Across the room, Morel still wouldn't look at me. That was the part that started bothering me most. Not Mom's behavior. That was almost expected by then. It was Morel acting nervous every time college got mentioned. Every time relatives congratulated her, she smiled for half a second and then glanced at Mom like she was checking for approval. A week later, I came home early from work and heard their voices from the hallway. Mom was whispering sharply. If she finds out what we sent, everything falls apart. I froze outside the doorway. Then the floor creaked beneath my shoe. Silence. And a second later, Mom slowly opened the door and stared directly at me. What exactly were you listening to? What exactly were you listening to? Mom's voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. I stood frozen in the hallway with my work apron still on, grocery store name tag hanging crooked against my hoodie. Behind her, Morel was sitting at the kitchen table crying quietly into her hands. Nothing, I said automatically. Mom opened the door wider, but didn't move aside enough for me to enter. That's good, she replied. Because this family has enough tension already. Then she shut the conversation down like it never happened. 2 weeks later, I moved out. Not because I wanted freedom. Because staying there felt impossible. Every room in that house reminded me of what I lost. The university brochures on the counter. Morel's dorm shopping bags piled near the stairs. Relatives calling to congratulate her while I sat 3 feet away pretending not to hear. Mom told everyone I was taking time to figure things out. The truth was simpler. I couldn't afford college anymore. By Thanksgiving, I was renting a tiny apartment above a laundromat and picking up extra shifts unloading delivery trucks at 5 a.m. Most nights I came home smelling like cardboard and bleach. Then Mom invited me to dinner. I almost didn't go. But when I walked into the house, it looked exactly the same. Same candles on the table. Same overcooked turkey. Same family pretending nothing bad had happened. Except now Morel wore a university sweatshirt with my school's logo stretched across the front. My chest burned the second I saw it. Oh my God, campus life totally changed her, my aunt laughed. Mom smiled proudly. College has been wonderful for her confidence. I kept quiet and focused on my plate until my cousin turned toward me. So Kelda, do you regret not going? Before I could answer, Mom jumped in. She just wasn't ready for that kind of pressure. The table went silent for half a second. Then everyone nodded like that explanation made perfect sense. I looked at Morel. She couldn't even meet my eyes. Later, I cornered her near the laundry room while everyone else cleared dishes. You need to tell me what's going on, I whispered. Morel immediately started crying. I didn't want this, she said shakily. Mom handled everything, and then it got too far. Suddenly Mom appeared in the doorway. Kelda, she snapped, stop trying to ruin Thanksgiving because you're jealous. Then, from the dining room, the house phone rang. And Mom answered with a confident smile that vanished almost instantly. This is the University Admissions Integrity Office, the caller said. This is the University Admissions Integrity Office. The entire dining room went still. Mom gripped the phone tighter. I think you have the wrong number, she said quickly. We're looking for Danica Vey regarding a financial aid and enrollment investigation connected to Kelda Vey and Morel Vey. My stomach dropped. Across the room, Morel looked like she was about to faint. Mom forced a laugh that sounded completely unnatural. There's obviously some confusion here. The woman on the line didn't react. Ma'am, we need to confirm whether Morel Vey is currently attending classes using records originally assigned to Kelda Vey. My aunt slowly lowered her wine glass. Ronan finally looked up from the table. Mom turned her back toward us, lowering her voice. My daughters are both adults. I handle paperwork sometimes, that's all. But the admissions officer kept going. We identified multiple discrepancies during a routine financial aid audit. Electronic signatures did not match prior records. Login activity originated from the same residential IP address, connected to both student accounts. I watched Mom's shoulders stiffen. Every strange thing from the past 6 months started clicking together in my head at once. The password reset. The missing scholarship forms. The fake explanations. Morel suddenly burst into tears. "I told you this would happen," she whispered. Mom spun around immediately. "Stop talking." But Morel kept crying. "She said it was temporary," she blurted out. "She said Kelda would get over it after a year and nobody would ever notice." The room exploded with overlapping voices. "What? Danica, what is she talking about? You said she earned that scholarship." Mom slammed her hand against the counter. "I did this for my family." Ronan stood up so suddenly his chair scraped hard across the floor. "I told you not to touch those accounts," he said quietly. Everyone turned toward him. His face looked exhausted. "I told her months ago this could become fraud." Mom stared at him in disbelief. "You said you wouldn't bring that up. You said it was already fixed." The admissions officer's voice cut through the chaos from the phone speaker. "Recovered emails indicate intentional impersonation and falsified enrollment submissions." Mom slowly lowered herself into a chair. Then came the sentence that emptied every bit of color from her face. "Your daughter was never legally admitted." Nobody spoke for several seconds. The only sound in the room was Morel crying into her hands and the faint hum of the refrigerator behind us. Mom sat frozen at the table with the phone still pressed against her ear, like if she held it long enough, the conversation might somehow reverse itself. But it didn't. The admissions officer continued explaining everything in a flat, professional voice that somehow made it worse. Their system had flagged inconsistencies during a financial aid review. Morel's enrollment records contained electronic signatures that didn't match previous applications. Login timestamps showed repeated access between both student accounts from the same home internet connection. Deleted emails had been recovered through cloud backups after the university's compliance department escalated the investigation. Every trail led back to our house. Back to Mom. She finally lowered the phone slowly onto the table. "No," she whispered. "I was fixing things for my family." Nobody answered her. Because there wasn't anything left to say. The truth came out in pieces after that. Mom had guessed my passwords using family birthdays and security questions. After my acceptance arrived, she logged into my student portal herself. She declined my enrollment offer, canceled my housing confirmation, and redirected financial aid communication before submitting altered information under Morel's records. She thought if Morel got onto campus first, the university would never question it later. And Morel had known. Not every detail, but enough. "I told her I didn't want it," Morel cried. "I said it felt wrong." Mom turned toward her instantly. "You were finally getting a chance. At Kelda's expense." That was the first time my sister had defended me in months. Ronan rubbed both hands over his face. "I told you this could destroy both girls," he muttered toward Mom. She looked around the room desperately, searching for support that wasn't there anymore. Earlier that evening, everyone had treated me like the bitter older sister who couldn't move on. Now nobody could even look at Mom. My aunt stood first. "You let us blame Kelda for this?" Mom's voice cracked. "I was trying to protect Morel." "No," I finally said. "You were protecting your favorite." The room went silent again. And honestly, that hurt her more than the investigation did. Over the next few weeks, everything unraveled fast. The university immediately revoked Morel's enrollment pending disciplinary review. Federal financial aid investigators contacted Mom regarding fraudulent documentation tied to scholarship funds. Her accounting office placed her on administrative leave once word spread locally. Ronan moved into a hotel after another screaming fight. Relatives stopped calling. Meanwhile, the university contacted me directly. I almost ignored the email because I thought it was another automated rejection. But it wasn't. After reviewing the fraud investigation, the admissions board reinstated my acceptance for the spring semester. My scholarship was restored in full, including housing. I read the email 3 times before it finally felt real. Months later, I stood outside my dorm building carrying 2 heavy boxes while students dragged luggage across campus around me. The life I thought I lost was suddenly right in front of me again. My phone buzzed as I reached my room. "Mom." Another apology message. Another explanation. Another excuse. I stared at it for a long moment before locking my phone and sliding it into my pocket unopened. Then I stepped inside my dorm room, closed the door behind me, and realized something I hadn't felt in years. My future finally belonged to me again.